Hertz Global Holdings and Tenneco Inc. with over 42 years of business experience. Mr. Frissora's experience and expertise spans across all levels of managerial and functional roles. He's known especially for consistently generating stakeholder and shareholder value at highly leveraged companies in both private equity and public markets, and successfully leading companies out of bankruptcy. Mr. Frissora's credits his success to a strong work culture that focuses on customer centricity, diversity, and employee engagement. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Philip. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. It feels good to sit here and get a chance to look into the mind of someone who's dedicated almost their entire life to business, and that's not always the case. There are people who, step into tech or this or that, but to like business, and I'm going to solve people's problems in operations and managerial, like to have that as a main thing isn't always a thing. It's always like somebody like fell into something and they wanted to do something sexy, and business can be sexy, but also business needs to be done right if it's going to be long-term lasting, or if you're going to turn a company around from where it was going. Right. So I got to ask, it has to make sense. Do you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
Oh, not really. No, my father was first generation Italian. My mother was English. They were musicians, struggling musicians that met at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. So I'm an only child, and so long story short, family had great work ethic, and I was lucky to have my father as long as I did, and he instilled in me a huge discipline on work and work ethic, and also creativity. Obviously, musicians have a lot of creativity. Mine happened to be in mathematics, so I'm pretty good in math, and musicians are good in math. So I've been able to use a lot of my creativity in some of the marketing roles that I had throughout my career.
That's amazing. So at what point in your early life, was it in high school or college or even earlier than high school, that you finally decided, you know what, I'm going to step into the world of business? And maybe you had a lemonade stand, maybe you didn't. What's the word there?
Well, honestly, when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I changed my major 3 times. I like to draw as an industrial design for a while. Then I did graphic arts. Then I did communications. Then I did business. So I've got like a dual degree in business and communications, and it was communications for TV and the whole idea of being in public announcer, that kind of stuff. So like I said, it was a weird thing that I ended up at General Electric for my first 10 years because at GE, I went into their management development program. And so I was able to be into marketing and product management roles, which, a little bit more creative side of business.
Yeah, that must have been, talk about an education with GE basically through their management development program. Do you attribute that program as a cornerstone of maybe the success that you are today?
Absolutely. Yeah. Those 10 years, Jack Welch was the CEO at the time. He had just become CEO. Yeah, since back in 77. And so I ended up for 10 years there, learning everything you could learn about a balance sheet, income statement. They had their own university. It was called Crotonville, and they send all their managers through it. And you get your own MBA there, and it's a really amazing place. And I probably spent, I bet you, 16 weeks up there total over the 10 years, and it was a great education for me.
I literally just spoke to somebody yesterday who had entered just as Jack Welch had left GE, and they said the same thing. The kind of energy that was there and what it taught them is responsible for what they are today. And they're in New York now doing successful things. So I'm starting to see a trend here. It really is not just some kind of myth. It really impacts the way people do business these days. So right after GE, what was your decision to break off and do business on your own? Like, what was that thinking like?
Well, so after GE, the one of the gentlemen that was one of the general managers at GE Lighting, this is the lighting business group, and it was Magoo, and if you recall, the light bulb, all the advertising they did back then was pretty novel and pretty cool. And so I was in charge of promotion development, got to get involved in all that. So after he left, the general manager, he went to Philips, and Philips had just bought the Westinghouse light bulb brand. And so I got recruited by him to come over and be director of marketing, then director of sales, and then product management. And so for 5 years, I had a blast just growing a brand, right? Growing the Philips. What they did is they took the Westinghouse brand and they got rid of it and they grew the Philips brand. It was a new brand in North America. So again, learned a lot. It's a lot smaller company in North America, Philips is. They're a big company and out of Eindhoven, but yet they were pretty small in lighting. And so I went from a very financially driven, HR, human resource driven company, GE, we had great resources, to a company that had about 1/8 of resources. And at first, when I left, I was thinking, well, oh my God, what did I do? Right? I must have done something really wrong here, because I said I'm going to fail. I've got no one to help me on anything. So it was probably the best career decision I made, because I learned so much. I was forced to learn so much and not be dependent upon different functional areas to do work for me. I had to do it myself. So it was either kind of swim or sink.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting that you have this background with these major names in
Yeah.
marketing and product development. And you look at the world and the landscape today of so many independent, bootstrapped or pre-seed and Series A funding to try to launch products, and it's new and it's sexy. And do you see a major difference in the way they market and develop their products or manage their products, as opposed to the way a major brand like GE and Philips and Westinghouse, the way they looked at their products and what they were doing?
There may be. I mean, I know that, like, for me, anyways, these big companies I worked for, and then ended up leading some of them, I was always looking for a way to be entrepreneurial within the company, right? So at General Electric, I was in charge of all of the, as a product manager for all the lighting products other than like soft white light bulbs. I had inside, I had bug lights, I had decorative lamps, I had a variety of specialty bulbs like night lights. And so the things that I did before I left there was we created a 4-pack of night lights. We repackaged bug lights so they were more clear. So by selling 4 night lights instead of 2 or 1, and the same thing we did for decorative bulbs, we capitalized on a consumer need, that they needed more than just one. And so we started packaging 2s and 4s, and it really helped our volume, obviously. In addition to that, we had a crack up. There was a product that we called Dawn Pink, and it was a pink light bulb, right? And we repackaged it, modernized it, and we called it Enrich. And then I was the product manager for this, so I had to go through with the factories. I mean, they didn't like making new packaging, and you get this resistance in a big company to do anything new, right? So I launched the 4-packs on night lights, the 4-packs on decorative bulbs. I launched a new bug light packaging. I did new Enrich instead of Dawn Pink. But it all worked well, and we had a little team. I had a small team, about 6 of us, and we would just work, with the engineers and the manufacturing guys to get these products through. But it was kind of an exciting experience for me. I had a blast doing that, and then I tried to, once I did that, everywhere I went, I tried to do something new and different, because if you do the same thing over and over again, you get the same result. So obviously, at one of the things at Hertz that I did that was, I think, turned out to be really, really a good thing. No one wanted to sell cars. We would take our cars after we rented them and we turn them into the auction. And we had 3,000 locations in the US. And I said, why aren't we just taking and putting in those 3,000 locations a little used car lot? Why couldn't we start selling these cars? Because, everyone's making a profit on them except for us. And we're buying 1 million cars a year. What the heck is, that all about? So I recruited one guy from a Mercedes-Benz. He's still there, and to start out, essentially a used car business. And now they're in 35 states. They're the 3rd largest seller, I think, of used car in the United States today. It's the most profitable division of Hertz. And it all started from just an idea, that why not do this? And there was a lot of resistance to that. And I was the CEO, so I was lucky enough to be able to put a little bit of my my will behind it, and it got traction. But this guy Jeff, he ended up just having a home run with it, right? So that was going back to 2008 when that was started, and it was a home run for the company. So that's an example of doing something entrepreneurial a little bit by starting a little business within a big business, and having fun with it, right? And we just grew. We ended up having 500 salespeople. We were in something like 35 states, and when I left, so it really grew, and it was really fast. and it was something that the company got very excited about. I think as a CEO, you need things like that, those kind of innovation things that go on within the company in order for the company to get excited about its future. Because if you just try to bang cost out of every single product that you've been making, and if it's a commodity product, that's not exciting. That's not happy times, right? So, one of my biggest things is trying to get the culture of the company I was with to see the vision and then create something that they could say, aha, this is cool. I can see that we're going to do something special here. So, we started to do that at Caesars, actually. At Caesars, always had been just in the US, and we had a London clubs, these London clubs, which were small, and we had this place in South Africa, but it primarily like 90% of everything was in the US. So the brand is so strong. Caesars has like about 16 brands. They've got Harrah's, they've got Paris, they've got Planet Hollywood, they got Flamingo. And so the idea was, let's find out which are these top brands and then start putting them and actually giving developers these brands to develop hotels around the world, even in the US. So we put one in Dubai. It's a Caesars Palace and a Caesars next door to it. It's right on the beach in Dubai. It's an amazing property that was started with a group of us while we were in bankruptcy, and we actually funded this thing to happen, with a developer. They put out most of the capital, and we let them use our name, and we created all of our brand standards. And we did that with Flamingo. We did that with Caesars Palace. We created a couple other brands. And when I left, the management became more U.S. centric. So a lot of those plans survived. We had a beautiful place in Caesars Palace designed in Cabo, right on the marina there, and it would have been amazing. And somehow that deal, I think, got busted. But everyone's got their own strategy, if you will. So, but the strategy that we had at the time was to have global expansion, so that people would come to Vegas, which is kind of the center of the universe for gaming and hospitality. And by putting that brand out into the universe in Asia, and Asians are really good gamblers. They love to gamble. And so we didn't have any Macau presence. So the idea was to have properties over in Japan, as well as it could be Shanghai, China, wherever we could. Macau, we were going to bid on the licenses being bidded on right now, because the Chinese government has put it out to bid. So that whole thing was started with the idea of doing something exciting. And we would show to employees, I'd have webcasts every quarter, and I'd show all these development projects around the world, what these resorts look like. And I'd say, you guys could go there. I mean, you can go. And if you want to be in these locations, these are more jobs for you, right? And, we want you to be able to travel the world if you want to, as an employee of Caesars Entertainment. So that's just a little example of what we did at Caesars to try to create some excitement. And it didn't cost much money because the developer spent the money. We just lent our name and we created brand standards. So it was a lot of marketing expense costs that deals with marketing people that have to work on this stuff. But beyond that, it wasn't capital, right? It was capital that was spent by other people.
And what I'm getting from when I listen to all of this is your innate ability to connect with people and connect them to the vision at hand. And that's managerial 101, but done right, and not everybody can do that. They do more like 99.9, not 101, maybe even 100, but not 101. So what do you think, or what can you attribute to your ability to connect with your team and establish a culture? Because it sounds like that seems to be the gift that keeps on giving for your career.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that for me, I learned on my first gig as a CEO at Tenneco. I was kind of fire and brimstone, and we were cutting costs because we just were spun out by the old Tenneco, and we were in the recession, 1999, 2000. And a lot of our plants the volume was down significantly, and we had a lot of debt put on us by the old Tenneco. So I became the CEO of this debt-ridden company, and it was very, very challenging. And so I started to see the value of, instead of trying to be dictatorial, to be inclusive. I had a gentleman that actually became he's kind of a mentor for me. His name's Larry Sen from Sen Delaney, Dr. Larry Sen. And so he brought in a whole different way of thinking after I was there for about 6 months. And, it makes a lot of sense. It's if people believe in the vision and they're excited by the vision, they're going to execute. If people hate what you're doing, they feel disconnected from what you and the senior team and the team above them are doing, then they're not going to do their job as well. So it's a real basic premise. People want to be involved. They like to feel connected. And so, you as the CEO need to be connected all the way down in the organization where the work gets done. And congratulate people, celebrate their successes, celebrate how long they've been with the company and what a great job they do. And that positive energy is it's a big shadow that I would cast as a CEO. So that positive energy really goes all the way through the organization. If I walk around and hammer people and complain and just say, you guys are idiots, I can't believe you blew that cost reduction program that we had. If I do that, all I do is I take the barometer of the room way down, right? And, they have a thing called the mood elevator, and you never get below curious. If you get anxious or frustrated or you start accusing people of things, you've lost the meeting. And so it's really important to stay positive and to connect with people and do your job as a CEO, which is create the vision that people want to follow and then feel connected. Make sure you have employee engagement all the way down in the organization. And you can only do that as you get out of your office and just go to places. So I just traveled a lot. I know on Caesar's job, I loved it because I lived on the strip, like a half a block away. So I'd walk. We had 9 properties all on the strip, right on 8 of them are on Las Vegas Boulevard center strip. And so I'd walk those properties every weekend and just have a blast talking to employees, the bars, the music, all the stuff that goes on in Vegas. And it was really engaging, really exciting. But they loved it because I would eat there, I'd drink there, I'd spend all my time there and on the strip. And the employees loved the fact that I was engaged as a CEO there. And it was very helpful. So,
Yeah. I would say that's a far cry from like what I've experienced. There was a startup I was a part of specifically who was all the things you said not to do as a CEO. And in all fairness, they were a board member who ended up having to take on the role of being a CEO. And let me tell you, there's a difference between a board member and a good CEO. And you have identified what those qualities are because they were exactly that. They would come in, they would immediately say, well, what's going on here? And what's this? And,
yeah.
It wasn't too long.
Make everyone defensive, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you got to make people comfortable. So actually having a good sense of humor is a great trait for a CEO, right? Making jokes about me, about myself, being humble. They always say, check your ego at the door, please. So, so we had a thing that I used religiously last 2 companies at Hertz and at Caesars called skip level reviews. I would arrive at a facility that could be, in Biloxi, Mississippi. We had a pretty big casino there. There's a lot of casinos in Biloxi, but that's one of the regions. And I would arrive, and then I would go into the room, and they'd know I was going to come, but not a whole lot of notice. And I would sit down with 10 people that they would pick that were people that work on the floor. It could be a dealer, it could be a cocktail server, but it was people at the transaction level of the business. I talk about it getting into the bowels of the business. And so once I would get those 10 people in the room, there was no managers allowed, and there was no one from HR allowed. And I started off and I would say, look, I'd like you to just tell me a little bit about yourself, even something personal if you can, and then tell me a couple things that are good happening at the company and a couple things that are bad. And I'm going to write this down. And after we get out of the meeting, I'm going to go over it with the management team. We're going to follow up on those bad things. And you might not like the answers, or you may love the answers. Either way, we're going to post them on a bulletin board, and you're going to see that we're taking action, that we're listening to what you have to say. So I did that, and it was so powerful because I would talk about my life a little bit, and how tough I had it, and how I never forget where I came from, and then then I would also relate some personal things, about it could be about my kids or something like that, and try to do it with a sense of humor and get people laughing a little bit, and then they would all go around the room and do it, and then everyone would have fun. It was last about an hour, and I would do every time I went on a trip. I did these, and it would only take an hour, and I debrief with the management team a half hour later. So it was very powerful because people knew when I came, they're going to get a chance to tell me like it really was, and it worked really well for me and for the team.
That's a game changer. And did you find often when you then spoke with management that their stories didn't cross, or that they tried defending
Um,
themselves instead, or
yeah, I mean, it's in some cases it's weird, but you can imagine in different cities. I could be, up in Idaho. I could be up in Oklahoma. I could be in New Jersey, Atlantic City, and in each region of the country, you can see the cultural differences. And there are some cultural differences where they're more resistant to change and they're more cloak and daggerish and they don't want you to learn anything about what's going on. And in others, they're just more open, depending on the geography that you're in, right? So it was usually, yeah, it's I'd say more cloak and daggerish, and I don't want you to know anything that's going on in the East Coast. But as you move west, it starts getting a little more open. People are just a little more laid back, and aren't scared to speak up a little bit, right? So it was an interesting phenomenon to watch it happen at Caesars. I found the same thing true in Hertz. In Europe, they're very negative and closed mouth, more so than Americans. I don't know, in any culture survey you do, if you ask them questions, they'll always score a little bit more negative in Europe than they will in North America. I don't even know if I know why, but it's just the way it is. They should be happier because they get usually 34 paid holidays, and in the US we get 13 paid holidays. So they should be a little happier. But my point is, I would get different reactions based on where I was and what region. It just goes to show you that everyone's different, and you can't assume anyone's going to be like you. I come from Columbus, Ohio, and no one's like me. So, I mean, Columbus is in the center of nowhere. So it's like, you're kind of plain vanilla no matter what. They used to do all the marketing testing in Columbus because the Wendy's and all these fast food chains, because it's Middleville, right? I mean, there's nothing there that's one way or the other.
I love that, because time and time again, the theme throughout our conversation is your ability to be aware and to tap into the fact that there is something already happening with people. So there's some unwritten rules that people are operating by, and you open the ground for that to be discussed, to be explored, to be almost invited to. And then from there, you see where it makes sense to then lead them forward to where you want them to go. And I can see that happening in the background everywhere you go. And that ability is something that I think many people who are looking to start companies today, or who don't know how to explain that to investors that they're hoping gives them money, or that's such a skill that is perfect for a CEO or anyone trying to be in business, that isn't talked about often. There's this thing in leadership, but that's not leadership. That's more than leadership. That's a true awareness of just others, not self-centered. And that's really cool that you can do that. So for me, now that we talk about how that opens up to, like, whether it's restructuring a team, right, or changing the culture, or saving a company by being able to empower the team by knowing them from the ground up, how you've been able to then watch all these major brands rebrand and repackage, and you've been a part of the rebranding and be repackaging. You've helped start a business within a business everywhere you could. All of these things, right, are the DNA of what an entrepreneur is in today's modern society, everything that everybody strives to be, right? So you did the thing with Caesars, right? And now what's on the future horizon for you?
Well, I've been a lot of things. I'm working on a lot of things right now. So one thing, I advise, I'm an advisor still to Apollo. They look to buy companies all the time. They're very large, $450 billion fund. And they have a lot of companies that they have bought. They actually were half owners of Caesars. And so I've been working on projects with them, companies where they are looking at buying the company, and then I advise on my expertise, right, on how I could help them. Then the other thing that I do is I just recently became a co-founder of a company called GoodWorks. And GoodWorks is headquartered in Vegas right now. And GoodWorks is a technology company, has an app that basically marries anyone who's in the union of Unite Here or other unions on the Strip with the different resorts, casinos. So everyone basically on the Strip has a, Unite Here or a union. And so there's like 60,000 workers just with Unite Here. There's about 100 and I think it's 140,000 unionized workers. There's dealers associations, the AFL-CIO. There's a lot of most of the workers there have some kind of representation. So what we do is there's all these jobs are standardized, and most of them have the same rate per hour. So if you want to work an extra shift, or if you want to try another company out, we allow you to do that with the GoodWorks app. So the app itself, you fill it out, and Unite Here has come out as well as the other unions, and they've endorsed it. And they've sent letters to the casino, and they've said to the casino operators and the resort operators, we want you to endorse this. We want you to work with GoodWorks because this helps us in that we allow our workers to have more overtime if they want, or try different companies out. And it's a benefit that we give to our workers, and we'd like you to participate in it as well. And then you will be able to solve a lot of your labor issues, because right now on the Strip, there's about a 30% attrition rate. They cannot find help. And so a lot of times they just make existing workers work overtime. In this way, you have this big population base in a database that you can manipulate and find, post a job, and instead of going through the interview process, it's done immediately, right? And our algorithms in GoodWorks actually screen for, seniority, how much time on the job, if there's specific training needed for that particular worker at that new company that they might want to work for. They don't leave the company they're at, they just get incremental work for the holidays or whenever they want to. And it also stops the 30-day process of interview and eliminates a lot of costs. So it's a kind of get America back to work. It's the whole idea of that. It's a minority-based company as well. And so we're trying to hit it out of the park and helping social needs that are there, helping everyday people to get more work when they want it, the way they want it, right? And have choices. And we're expanding beyond, we got stuff going in Atlantic City as well. And then we're going to be talking to the automotive industry as well. So we're doing a lot of stuff, but it's exciting because people love the concept. It's pretty simple, but the software slick and developed in Romania. And we have a bunch of software experts that are continue to refine it and make it even better. So we're talking to a couple of the big casino operators. I can't talk, but they're on board. We're just finalizing the contract. So that's an exciting thing I'm working on. So
Oh yeah.
a couple of guys that worked with me at Caesars, they started it about a year, and then I came in with some funding. And they gave me the title of co-founder, and I'm selling it too, right? So I'm going out there and talking to the CEOs on the Strip, which I got to know pretty well, and everyone's been positive about it. So I've been spending some time on that. And the other last thing is there's a company called Aaron Sebia, and that's a company that my family's bought into pretty high, and it's a company that does reclaim and recovery of industrial gases. So imagine helium's very expensive, argon's very expensive. So we develop a whole little plant outside your plant that reprocesses that gas and reclaims all of it, like 95% of it. And then we give it back to the customer, 50% reduction in pricing. So that company is going gangbusters, highly engineered product line, totally different than, the app and in Las Vegas, a totally different thing. It's very technical and patents and stuff. And is a family that came up with this, and we love the idea. And I started funding their growth, and then we ended up buying it kind of from the founders, the owners who were engineers, and the whole thing of, again, making the world a cleaner place, right? So you have something that all the employees can get around because we're using 90% less gas on argon and helium. You use helium to make semiconductor chips. You use argon in any kind of metal cutting that goes on in plants. So huge applications, companies growing fabulously. And so I've been excited to be, I'm chairman of that company, and I'm excited about leading that as well.
This is awesome, because not only does it could, again, show your ability to tap into the people and what they need, just, on a general consensus. So you have that sense of mission with that one company, right? And then on the other end, here you are conscientious of the environment as well. it's just amazing to me how much effort and work you've been able to put in to get to a place where now you can truly impact the make or break of it by bringing in some serious funding. Because I'm sure they would have succeeded, but you definitely accelerated the amount of success they could achieve in a shorter amount of time by bringing in your connections, the people that you know, your experience, your understanding of how to look at an environment and say, okay, this could happen here, this could happen there. Just that entrepreneur that you are. And
Yeah.
so it's really exciting that good works is going to be, I think, something that's going to be adopted everywhere once it's proven as a concept there. Because the more I talk about it with people, the world of labor is changing as we become more modern, and people's expectations of work is starting to become like they expect flexibility at some point,
Right. You
and
do. A different world.
it's
Yeah.
really cool to see someone like you spearheading that, especially coming from, major corporate, and where, there
Yeah,
was.
and I'm an old man. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like crazy, right? So I tell people I hate age, right? So I wish I never aged, and I wish I just, because I feel like I'm young at heart, right?
You
So
are.
always I want change, and I'm big on change, and anyone that has ever worked for me will tell you that the man likes change, and so I like to change it up and try to do things differently so that we can be better, right? So it's been a fun ride for me, but it hasn't stopped. Like I said, like a couple projects here, and who knows where I may end up in the next 6 months.
Oh
So
man, you're definitely just getting started. That's what's so exciting. I don't even have to ask you, how do you find the energy to manage all this? I mean, just look at the sense of mission and purpose behind what you're doing. It's
yeah.
clear. There are clear objectives to be achieved there. And so it makes a lot of sense to me. So I have two final questions as we close things out. Number one, where can people get a hold of you and learn more about what you're doing? Are you active anywhere, or is it an email that they can contact you with?
Oh yeah. If you just www.markfrissora.com. So and there's contact information, et cetera. So that's the best way. I just went live on this website a couple of weeks ago, so
Nice.
it was pretty cool put together. So there's that. That's how you would.
Yeah, I
That's
would have everything else there. Yeah, good.
yeah.
Markfrissora.com. And then I have a question that I've asked everybody who's stopped by on this show. And it's just a curiosity of mine. I hope you indulge me, but you are welcome to pass. And that is, if you could have invited anybody today to sort of go over your journey and see the kind of things that you bring to a company and what you're working on now, dead or alive, who would you have loved to have invited, and why?
Um, Pretty easy, I think. The answer to that question would be my father, who died unfortunately when I was 12 years old. And I think I told you, as an only child, he gave me 12 years of total discipline. He was a big supporter of mine, bragged about me all the time, gave me lots of love and support. And I had 12 great years with him. He was my best friend. But I've done so much, and in my career, I'm certainly proud of all the teams of people that have worked for me, that created the value that's been created. But I would have loved my dad to have seen what I did, and how I did it. So I would have loved his advice, and loved the pride that he had in me before he died. And so that would have been a fun thing to have him here with us today.
Absolutely. And you're a father now. Did you mention that?
Oh yeah, I have 4 children. Yep, I have ages 35 through 41. So
Wow.
yeah,
Nice.
2 boys and 2 girls. Yeah, it's hard. I can't spit that out, right? I got a 41-year-old son. No, 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 no. I was 10 when, this girl got pregnant. No, it's not true.
Hey man, I really think that you're going to be doing great things until the very last moment of life, man. And that's a long way from now, from the looks of it, just based off what I see from you and what you're doing. And I know for a fact, I mean, I'm not going to speak for him, but I could imagine any father would be proud, and I'm sure yours is too. And I know your children are happy to have you here.
It's a blast. Yeah,
You know,
my 2 sons. I'm in a lot of different businesses, investments with them, so that's been really great. So,
oh, that's
yeah,
awesome. Just
yeah,
like you would have loved to have been able to do with your own man.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah.
No, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know who you are in a brief way. There's no way you could ever know someone from just one conversation, but I think I learned enough to know that you are responsible for a great impact in society anywhere you go. And I'm grateful for that. So I want to invite anyone who's listening to go check out markfrissora.com again, and get to know the man, get in touch if there's anything that you think crosses over with what you're doing. or just to say hi. And Mark, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, thanks, Philip. Please take care.